What's up, everybody? We are back. How you doing, sir?
Doing well. How are you?
We are here with James, and it's how do you pronounce your last name?
Lo Vecchio.
Oh, because we were talking earlier, and you're Italian. How much? What's the percentage, or does that
I have
even
no
matter in
idea.
America?
Yeah.
Because if you were saying it and you were in Italy, how would you say it? La vecchio.
Yeah, probably something
Like
like that.
you were just doing like the pizza thing, like la vecchio.
Yeah, I was gonna say you don't say it so much as you
You,
express it,
you yell it.
right?
So funny story. I was in the Air Force, stationed in Germany, was heading to Italy for a snowboarding competition. I got lost. I tried to ask for directions and had to get an interpreter. The lady, from my percent, was yelling. But she was just giving me directions.
Yeah.
She's just like, I was like, goodness gracious. Okay, cool. So today we are going to be talking about the human firewall. So having a human element when it comes to your security awareness training, yeah? And this
Uh,
comes up a lot.
it does. I mean, the humans are the first and last lines of defense when you're talking about cybersecurity.
Mm.
So, the phrase human firewall, it's been around a bit, but I think it perfectly encapsulates the role of the individual in cybersecurity
Mm-hmm.
because all of the technology in the world can be bypassed by tricking one person, right?
And that's pretty much the start of it. It's like training everybody, like, don't click all the links.
I mean, in simplistic terms, yeah, just security awareness is kind of like setting rules in your firewall. So,
Mm-hmm.
firewall is, if we think of it in physical terms, it's meant to prevent a fire from spreading. And in the digital terms, it's meant to prevent access in one way, shape, or form. So, the human firewall is, extension of that in that you're trying to prevent bad actors from getting somewhere
Mm-hmm.
or spreading some sort of malicious activity. And so often, way more than most people realize, it's the person behind the mouse that's the problem, not the computer itself.
So something you said is interesting when you talk about a human firewall to prevent a fire. So if the fire is the enemy coming in, the human firewall is on the defensive side. Do you more deal with that side of it? Meaning you are training in the client side, not the bad guy side coming in.
Yeah.
If you're to look at in a fire base, right? It's your guys on your side.
Yeah, exactly. So in our world, we have our clients,
Mm-hmm.
the companies, and we have the end users that comprise the company themselves. And
And that's the human side. That's the firewall you
the
want to
firewall,
set.
right? So
Okay.
we want to create 50 little firewalls at a company that are going to help keep that company's assets safe from those people, that fire that's trying to break in.
How the heck does that, like, you gotta spend millions, like the industry on different platforms. I mean, there's some platform popping up monthly.
Yeah, you can. It can take a lot of turns financially,
Mm-hmm.
certainly. A lot of that is on the technology side. There's a concept called defense in depth, which means having layered security. So you're going to have your perimeter firewall, you're going to have your antivirus, you're going to have your intrusion detection and prevention systems, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
have your user behavior analytics, you're going to have all these other tools. And in a lot of cases, each one of them is a line item on an invoice.
Mm-hmm.
But again, they can all be defeated sometimes relatively simply by an individual that's not taking the appropriate action.
Bob, that's doing TPS reports.
Yep, exactly right. Yeah, Bob gets a email saying he got a free $5 gift certificate to Dunkin' Donuts, and next thing you know, you're on the news.
Bob.
It's always
Bob.
Bob.
Bob from accounting.
Apologies, any Bobs out there. Just an example.
Bob, you need to use something. Yeah.
I mean, Bob just needs a little bit of guidance.
Yeah, yeah. So is that really so when you say that too, and hearing it is almost like you got to think strategically and militarily, almost like this is your headquarters. How am I protecting it?
Yep.
And you look around it and go, where's somebody going to break in?
Yep.
Or attack or lob rocks or something like that, right?
Yep.
And so when a client comes on, is that your first step? Like, what is that first step?
So usually the first step is a conversation. We're big proponents of training, and so we like to understand a few things because training is, like anything else, very targeted to what you're trying to accomplish,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you're running a marathon, you're not necessarily going to train to sprint
True.
or do the hurdles
Yeah.
or pole vault, right?
Or
So
eat.
sure. Although that's a component of training in that regard usually. So really, we want to understand your organization? What are you trying to accomplish? What regulations and industries are you subject to,
Mhm.
contractual obligations, these kinds of things, so that we can try to target that training more specifically to what you're actually trying to achieve.
So when you say you come and try to understand now, if it's a let's business, duh, because you deal with business. Well, they're trying to survive. They're trying to stay open and have nothing crash, but that's really not their stated goal. It might not because let's say construction,
Yep.
a home builder. They're trying to build homes. They want to build homes. That's their goal.
Yep.
That's what their intention is.
Yep.
How do you marry those two up?
So again, what kind of homes are they trying to build?
To say track.
Is it commercial? Like there's still a number of nuances in there. Are they doing anything with the government? Are they doing anything with public entities in general? What do their contracts say?
Mm,
Right? Because every outcome is achieved by all of these other aspects of what guides to that goal,
mhm,
right? And so there is a general baseline of, hey, these are things that everyone should know about how to do a thing.
mhm,
And then there are specifics within the organization, like a CFO.
mhm,
Everyone there's outcome is to build a house,
mhm,
but the CFO's job is to handle the finances.
mhm,
So the CFO's training is going to be a little different than the guy out there swinging the hammer,
mhm,
or possibly the CEO, or possibly the HR person,
mhm.
or the project managers, right? So there's all these different roles in there that have a specific aspect of that goal that they're accountable for. And each one of them may have a slightly different need or level of awareness or type of awareness that they need to look out for.
But at the end of the day, they're all trying to build homes.
And they're
So
all trying to build homes.
so when you guys come in there and you look at it, you go, "Okay, tell me through the process, CFO." You're like, "Well, we have all of our subs upload invoices."
Sure.
So do you go around and go, "Oop, there's a spot, there's a upload." So there's a click, there's a link, there's a something that they upload. There's a entry point for something bad. Is that how you look at it?
In part. So we try to understand who your business partners are, right?
Mhm.
So having an upload link, sure, fine. But who should be uploading?
Mm.
And what happens when you upload it? So, for example, ACH fraud is huge, right? People will
Oh, yeah.
compromise one of your business partners' emails,
Mhm.
and then they will submit an invoice or they will request a fund payment to a different account. Hey, I need to change my ACH, or in case of like payroll, I need to change my direct deposit, right?
Mm.
And these could be coming from legitimate business partners who had an account compromise of their own. So this might be somebody you actually know, right?
You just don't know it's not their email. Yeah.
Right? You just don't know that the person behind the keyboard isn't the person who's using the email, right?
So when you think human firewall, you're then coming in and training them what to look at and go, "Oop, check the email. Look, this is
Yeah.
weird."
Yeah. And
Uh,
just, hey, this request usually doesn't come from, say, this person, or maybe there's something a little off in the way they phrase something,
mhm.
or maybe the time of day is wrong,
Oh
right?
my gosh.
So
Yeah.
if somebody who normally would email you or contact you about an invoice or something like this during a, say, 8 to 5 window, Monday through Friday, is emailing you at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, well, that's something you should pay attention to, right? That could be a sign of compromise, or that something untoward is happening, right?
Mhm.
So there's a lot of nuance to it, but understanding how you operate helps us kind of target that more specifically and what
Mhm.
your role is within the organization. And so just like a firewall is going to support multiple different services from a technical standpoint,
Mhm.
could be a web server, could be an FTP server,
Mhm.
could be just internet browsing, like could be just a number of different things. We're going to craft rules specific to that function, right? Same kind of concept here
Mm.
in the human firewall. We want to tune that person to that role and to that function.
Yeah.
We're going to even look at things like, do you have a verification? If somebody contacts you to say, reroute this payment, is that just, you just go do it? Is there a secondary check? Is there a
Mhm.
phone call out? Right. So
Do you guys write policy in that? Or
we,
you
we
help with
can,
it?
yeah,
Yeah.
we can.
Like on a consultative basis?
Yep. Yep. So, a lot of these organizations that we deal with have some policies in place, right? But sometimes when we look through those, we go, okay, so you created this policy in 2012 and you really haven't revisited it since, and
Mhm.
all this stuff. So sometimes it's 1,000% non-technical, right?
Mhm.
You're looking at process, right? How are things actually unfolding? That is also part of security awareness is, you know, how are you achieving this outcome in your role? And so there's these layers of kind of
That
nuance
makes
that comes through
sense.
it, right? So, again, anytime there's a financial transfer, well, do you regularly do $50,000 transfers? Is that normal business? Okay, well, then maybe we target anything over 50,000 or over
Mhm.
100,000 that requires some extra scrutiny, right? If you think about it, let's take the military example.
Mhm.
You go into just a regular air base,
Mhm.
right? You show your ID at the gate. You've got pretty much free run
Within there.
except for the restricted areas, right? You have to
Mm.
show another level of ID or
Mm.
higher clearance or
Flight
job
line,
specific
armory.
role,
Yeah.
whatever that is, to access or to do these things, right? Very similar in nature to any organization. You're going to have your broad or kind of public,
Mhm.
general access, general needs, general awareness. Then you're going to have your highly targeted. It's going to funnel down to the most private and restricted aspects. And then each one of those layers kind of has to have its own firewall, if you will,
Mhm.
in between those, what we call trust boundaries to ensure that those layers have the appropriate protection.
That makes so much sense when you're talking about it.
And then the people who are doing those jobs, again, have to have that specialized training for that role.
Mhm.
And in a lot of cases, they are that firewall.
So in a lot of organizations that you guys work with, you're saying all this, I would assume they already have someone that looks at this, like this CT, chief technical officer, I don't know. But they might be one person.
It very well could be.
So you bolt on with them and you're the eyes on and you report to them. Is that how that works?
I mean, it varies. We usually have, say, a primary point of contact for the IT function.
Mhm.
So IT itself is, we call it keeping the ship afloat, right?
Mhm.
Your mouse stops working or you got a pop up on your screen. That's the IT side, right?
Mhm.
The security aspect is all the things that go on behind the scenes, right? Our firewall, like Windows firewall configuration,
Mhm.
system hardening, antivirus tuning, these kind of things that the end user really doesn't see, right? So that's also something that is IT, but not really
Right.
user facing, right?
Well, when you're talking about the human side of it, I imagine you're doing a lot of training. Like you're
Yep.
partnering with that CTO, CFO to go and come in and say, "Here, do, don't do, don't do, don't do."
Yep. And that's really the difference, right?
Okay.
Between IT and say the broadly the security function is that we're going beyond, the operational aspect and we're looking at how do we, number one, help that human firewall be effective. And then if and when most technology is going to fail you at some
Mhm.
point, whether it's a hardware failure, a bad update, a misconfiguration,
Something.
something.
Yeah.
And so that safety net oftentimes is the human, right? So then
Mhm.
we, on top of all those things, which is really a business function. And that's where maybe there's a distinction to be made here between IT and business functionality is that this security awareness type thing, even though it's related to IT, is
It's
a
bigger.
business function,
Yeah.
right? Like it's kind of like a safety program again in say construction, right?
Mhm.
Like they're doing the job, but keeping your people safe is a business concern,
Yeah.
like physically safe,
Because
right?
it impacts the overall goal. If you
It
wanna build
impacts the
houses,
overall goal.
you need safe people to build the houses and to make it all run.
Yep, and you don't wanna be paying out, lawsuits and workers' comp claims and
Sure.
all this other stuff, right? Because the impact of that is greater than the value of the function that it's being served. The risk is higher. I don't
Right.
wanna say the value, but the it brings risk, and, again, some of this is regulation. You're being told you have to do this as a component of a law or
Yeah.
your contractual obligations, but in the end, all of these things are meant to keep the business safe
Mhm.
as much as anyone else. I know there's going to be some probably disagreement about that conceptually. People are your number one asset.
Mhm.
Keeping them safe is always number one.
And it could be the number one thing to bring you down.
It absolutely can. And the number two
Bob in
thing is
accounting.
your actual assets, right?
Yeah.
And this is the data you have, your IT infrastructure, your tools,
Mhm.
the things that you use to create value, right?
Mhm.
Those have value. And so training people on how to deal with those things, again, be it a truck, be it a hammer, be it a file on your computer, they all require some level of specific training to that component.
Do you guys do that to where you'll develop a plan or an SOP, standard operating procedure, for a company? Is that part of the consulting stuff that you guys do?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they'll come in, construct. We're just going to hammer on construction here. So they come in and be
They
like,
just did their hammer on
I
construction.
wasn't even meaning to. I totally didn't. So if they come in and they're like, listen, we've got, 100 people, but 30 people in corporate, and then we got the soups that are in project managers that are out there. We're having a hard time with everybody on their phones and all that kind of stuff. They think they're getting a call from wherever and they're clicking one. Is that how they come to you? And then once you understand, you do say, all right, cool. Here's our 12-month plan. Here's how you're going to stop, fix, move on. Is that how?
I wish more people would come to us like that. If I'm just being fully honest.
Well, why would prevention's better than, fixing the house that just blew down?
Sure. But again, I think it's one of those topics that there's just a very selective attention span for. Really, the goal for most organizations is to function, right? Operations.
Stay open.
And in security, by its very definition, is obstruction, right? Like, probably not its actual definition, but if you think about it, security is obstruction.
You're obstructing the thing that's trying to attack you. Yeah.
Right.
Hard target.
You're putting in, checks and balances, stop gaps, these kind of things. Technology, again, is going to be a part of it. But having people understand, number one, why the security is in place, what that means for them, try to eliminate what friction you can without creating gaps in the security, and then training people what to do when those gaps inevitably get exposed.
That's so funny because when we were talking about what are we going to talk about, and you're like, we need to talk about human firewall because it's coming up. I actually thought, well, prior to doing a little bit of digging, that this was like a platform. Because in my mind of being non-IT is that I go and I think that you push buttons and you watch screens and there's graphs and there's blips and there's beeps, and all the while you're listening to a Star Wars podcast. You know what I mean? But in actuality, you're building a freaking massive offensive and a defensive plan that any organization or any like a military organization would put in place. And so you're legit going to go in and teach their people.
Yeah. I mean, that's the goal. Not so much offensive. You're not really allowed to do that. But,
well, here's what I mean.
For sure.
Well, here's what I mean by that. If you're going to go and you hold a training and you say offensively, here's what you look for in email. This is how you know. Your 2 a.m., that's an offense. You're teaching them how to you're like the 1800s trapper. Oh, see the blood right here? I know the deer went this way. Look at the tracks. Like, that's what I mean by offensive.
Sure. I mean, proactive, maybe I would use.
Fine, you can have the better word.
But at the end of the day, again, like anything else, if we're kind of digging into some of these analogies, right? The military, there's many different job roles.
Sure.
And not everyone does things the same way. They all get training. Everyone gets training. Everyone gets the basic training. Right?
Yeah.
And then they go to whatever school to get their job-specific training, right? And so that's what we're looking to do. We're looking to give everyone a basic level of training to help the basic rule set of that human firewall, and then we're going to target the specific thing that they're doing and try to give them some additional training that's more targeted towards that role.
So if you go in and you do yours 6 months, 12 months at a place, what's the biggest mistake a human can make when it comes to this world? That you've seen over 27 years?
Rushing, being in a hurry.
Rushing. Oh, yeah, that's a good. Slow down.
Yeah.
Read the footprints. Read the tracks.
We're in a very high energy, high productive mindset a lot of the times, and a lot of the things we do are muscle memory, right? So
I'd almost say frantic.
Yeah. For sure, there's some urgency usually, right? But just paying attention goes a long way. Taking an extra 2-3 seconds to really think about what you're doing and not just trying to, be that machine that gets things done. And,
right.
I know a lot of business owners are like, no, we got to get this done. But, again, kind of rushing through or not paying attention to what you're doing is generally speaking dangerous.
Yeah.
Right. And that goes for all things. You're just more prone to mistakes from a human nature standpoint, and especially when these are routines, right?
Yeah.
Muscle memory routine is a killer. Absolute killer. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard things like, James, I was expecting a package from UPS when I clicked on that bad link. Well, guess what? The people that sent that email know that at any given time, you're probably waiting on a UPS package.
It was just a guess. I've almost done that.
Well, educated guess.
Yeah.
Human nature.
Yeah.
Right? It's our human nature to try to get through things or do things efficiently. And efficiency at times is costly to security.
I would have guessed you were gonna say, what's another word for lethargic? Apathy? Like just don't care? Or like, it's not gonna happen to me. What's that word? There's a word,
Yeah, I'm not sure the word you're looking for there.
but it's like, it's a work phone. I don't even care. If it gets corrupted, I hand it back. What
And some people have that, right?
hmm,
Apathy is probably the
apathy. Maybe I was
closest
trying to go with that one, yeah.
term, maybe. But, you know, the reality is that you're never going to eliminate that in any organization. And this
Mhm.
is where a culture of security comes into play, right?
Mm.
So it all starts with the top. All of these efforts, anything you do in your organization is generally guided by
Mhm.
CEO,
Mhm.
right? Or whoever is the
Developing that
lead,
culture.
right?
Mhm.
And having them come back and say, okay, this is what is expected of you. This is the tools we're going to give you to help you achieve that thing.
Mhm.
And then making sure that people are doing the activities that kind of lead up to that outcome.
Mhm.
Security needs to be right in the mix there, right? That human firewall needs to be trained. And so, end of the day, you're never going to get 100%, we'll say, enthusiastic buy in on these things.
Mhm.
But the more you build your culture around it, the more likely it's to become second nature.
What's the thing that you do that spurs that or gets that going? Because I don't necessarily know a lot of companies. They're big on culture, but they might not have a culture of security from the IT standpoint. Like, what do you guys do when you come in? Like, you play games? Like,
Um,
let's all play Twister.
yeah,
Here's what you don't do.
security twister. Yeah, don't put right hand on green. Really, there's a couple of things. So this is kind of a difficult one because it varies from
Organization to work.
organization.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Which makes sense.
really what we're going to do is we're going to sit in with the leadership or point of contact and we're going to say, hey, look, we feel like this is incredibly important.
Mhm.
Tell us more about how you feel like your organization would react to it, right? And we do emphasize that this is a organizational culture issue. And then we provide tips on how to try to integrate that into more of a day-to-day thing, right? So a lot of places, especially, again, if we're going to hammer on construction,
Mhm. That's just one industry. We'll hammer on others.
sure, you'll see posters, safety first all around the organization, right?
Mhm.
Well, one of those posters could be, hey, think about what you're clicking on. You could have
Mm.
a 2 to 5 minute hit in team meeting or huddle, right? Hey guys, cybersecurity is important to us. Here's a tip.
Mhm.
Here's a thing to look out for. Here's some piece of knowledge that will help you be more aware. Some people go the gamification route. Like
Mm.
people really respond to rewards or, some cases it's disciplinary action. If you don't do it, you're going to get in trouble, right?
First
So
one to click on the link is fired.
yeah, something like that.
Go.
And, so again, it really depends on the culture itself.
Yeah.
But
But you
making that apart and trying to not be punitive with it is generally what we see to be most successful.
And that's what you come in and be a part of that going, all right, here's some ideas. Here's what we've seen. We recommend X,
Yep.
Y, and Z.
Here's some tools we can use.
Yep. And they say go, you create that, execute it.
Yep.
Man.
Yep. Or at least, provide content. And if people want to engage with us at that level, we will meet them where they are
Mhm.
and then we will help them build that program out. But if you don't have that top level support in
Mhm.
creating that as a component of your culture,
Mhm.
it's probably going to be a struggle.
Well, that's such an interesting thing because I know within a lot of organizations, obviously there's a sales team. So they'll bring in not a contractor, but like a consultant and be like, here's how you do sales and rah, let's go. And like, here's your safety team. They'll bring in and say, you guys are almost on that level from a consultation and an execution of it. Like you're woven in there.
Yeah, again, that is the goal. Organizations have, we'll say, a varying adoption of that.
Sure.
But the ones that we find most successful weave us into essentially we're an extension of their organization, and
Yeah.
we help them get better business outcomes,
Mhm.
not just keep your computers running.
And that's what I'm getting is that you guys are so much bigger, and it's a good thing to talk this through because I don't think well, maybe some get it, but I think a lot of people are just like, culture's fine. Don't touch it. Just make sure my printer works or whatever. But you're going, no, it's bigger than that.
Yeah, and we're not looking for some massive shift in culture, more like just an element to add to it,
Mhm.
right? So if you look at the concept of a human firewall being overhead,
Mhm.
well, okay, then there's going to be some resistance. If you look at it as this is a business necessity,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to have a different
Feel.
approach,
Yeah.
different feel, right? Different outcome likely. And, probably the biggest, I don't want to say pushback, but maybe counterpoint to what we say is, well, we've never had it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, how do you know?
Yeah.
For threat actors, average dwell time can go from, as much as like 210 days,
Mm.
right? There's sometimes things get exfiltrated by staff, right?
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
there's, there's just so many stories that I could tell about people getting blindsided by something that they didn't actually know was possibility, or
Yeah.
they felt like they were, trusted entities within their organization, only to find out later that they got burned. And part of being a human firewall is understanding maybe what your partner's doing. I'm not sitting here saying you should like monitor every little thing that everyone does. Many
But
people do. Many people
yeah.
do.
Yeah.
But if a supervisor can be trained to understand that, hey, this developer is creating assets for us that are highly valuable and it's proprietary. And if it were to get out of this organization, it would do us financial harm.
Mm.
And to look for the signs that that is happening,
Mm-hmm.
well, you might want to think about that.
You guys you're 1800s frontiermen. You just know, and trappers, you know how to hunt and what to look for and how to get there.
Yeah, and it's something that is, again, a very specialized skill that's been developed over time,
You
right?
need like old raccoon hats.
Right. So
Which-
I recently picked up fly fishing.
Hell, dude, that's awesome. I love it. I've been
Yeah.
fly fishing for a long time.
And I stand next to people who've been fly fishing for years and years. And they're
Yes.
pulling them out like it's a 1920s cartoon.
Yes. Yeah. A river runs through it.
And
You're showing up with worms.
I'm just essentially getting bait soggy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, having that experience to be able to identify, okay, here's the key pieces, the techniques and things like that you should be looking for.
Yeah.
Takes time and effort. And if you don't ever start or put the investment in learning, you're not really going to get there, right?
Right.
The first step in getting good at something is sucking at it. And that extends into this thing like, security awareness training, stuff like that. Yeah, your organization isn't just going to come out of the gate and solve all the world's problems with it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't start, you'll never get good.
Hopefully you're not the CTO or CFO that's trying to learn it and sucking at it, because that could be really detrimental real quick.
No, it can. And again, that's not really what they're trained to do.
Yeah. Right. Do what they're doing. Yeah.
CTO maybe a little more so.
Yeah.
But, CFOs, which oftentimes get IT kind of shoved on their plate,
Mm-hmm.
they're worried about the financial side of things. And if you take a step back and look at it, cybersecurity, the actions that people take have a direct financial potential impact, right? This is what we call risk,
Mm.
right? And so even beyond things like human firewall,
Mm-hmm.
we'd be looking at, what is your policy around this,
Mm-hmm.
right? And helping kind of build
Shape
that,
it, root.
right?
Yeah.
So
Wow.
most people don't just go out and buy a firewall, plug it in and go, right? There's usually some actual planning and configuration and kind of understanding what you're trying to achieve with it and why.
Yeah.
Same kind of concept here. Understand your organization, understand the roles within it, understand what things can hurt you, right? The threats that are out there,
Mm-hmm.
and then craft your awareness training for your firewalls to target those specific things. Much better chance of success.
Totally. Well, that's awesome. Well, I know I've covered all the questions. Anything else you want to add, or you?
Not specifically, just that, often the individual is overlooked as a resource in cybersecurity, right? It's all about the tools. It's all about the technology.
You hear that all the AI will do it, save time, say that you remove the human. That's not a good thing.
Yeah. And really the keystone to all of this, the foundational component is the individual. And that, in my opinion, is the best use of your energy. I would say maybe not best, but it is one of the essential components of creating a cybersecurity program is investing in your human firewalls.
Yeah.
And, the other thing that I want to call out here is that, in the, we'll say, historical IT world, it was really about securing the devices. Right. Everyone put a lot of energy into securing the devices. But with the prevalence of cloud technologies, software as a service, all of these things where the hardware, the devices are outside of your control, the new endpoint is the identity. The identity is the individual, effectively, right? So now that the culture around computing has shifted, the culture around security needs to shift as well.
That's crazy.
Those tools are still needed, right? A carpenter isn't just going to know how to create a house and It just happens. You still need your security tools. However, the house doesn't get built by tools alone. It takes a skilled tradesman.
Dang.
So it all works together. The emphasis, in my opinion, at this point is on the individual. The tools that they use to achieve it, also very important, but get your people trained. Make sure they know what they're doing. Make sure they know how it will impact you if they make a mistake or get tricked. And
it's going to happen.
Do something about it.
Yeah. Well said, James. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to the next one because we got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Indeed.
All right.
So much.
See you around, man.